The soft clinking of glasses echoed through the elegant restaurant, a place where chandeliers dripped light like liquid gold and laughter floated as easily as champagne bubbles. But that night, as the doors opened and an elderly Japanese woman stepped inside, everything seemed to shift. Her hair was silver, tied neatly in a bun. She wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, yet her presence carried an air of quiet dignity, the kind that made people stop talking for a moment. She walked slowly, leaning a bit on her cane, and smiled gently as she looked around, searching for something or someone. No one knew her, yet all eyes followed her as she made her way to an empty table by the window. The waiters exchanged puzzled glances. Something about her seemed both regal and sorrowful, as if every step carried a memory too heavy to bear. When the young waiter approached and handed her the menu, she bowed slightly and said something softly, in Japanese. The waiter froze, confused. He couldn't understand. He nodded awkwardly and walked away, whispering to his colleagues. Soon, the whispers spread among the staff and guests, the mysterious woman who spoke no English, dining alone in one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Before we go deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion that crosses every language barrier, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Journal, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that goodness still exists in the world. Sparkling heart. The woman waited patiently, her hands resting gently on the tablecloth, the light catching the jade ring on her finger, old, worn, but beautiful. When the waiter returned, he brought a menu with pictures, pointing to dishes and smiling awkwardly. She tried to respond, her voice trembling slightly, but the language barrier stood tall between them. The guests nearby began to notice. Some chuckled quietly, others rolled their eyes. Why would she come here if she can't even speak English? Someone whispered. Minutes turned into an hour. The woman sat there, looking around as if searching for a familiar word, a friendly face. Her eyes glistened not with anger, but with quiet disappointment. The manager, a tall man in a suit, approached, visibly annoyed. Is there a problem, ma'am? He asked slowly, as if speaking louder would somehow translate his meaning. She looked up, confused but kind, and said again in Japanese, something that sounded polite, maybe apologetic. The manager sighed and stepped back. She doesn't understand, he muttered. Just, get her something simple. Soup or whatever. At a nearby table, a young waitress named Emily overheard everything. She was new, still learning, still nervous. She watched as the old woman clasped her hands, eyes glancing down at the untouched glass of water in front of her. Something about that moment broke Emily's heart. The restaurant buzzed with chatter and laughter, but that lonely figure seemed trapped in silence. Emily couldn't explain it, but she felt drawn to her, as if fate had placed her there for a reason. When her shift quieted for a moment, Emily walked over. The woman looked up, startled, then smiled faintly. Emily didn't know Japanese, but she bowed slightly in respect, something she'd seen once in a movie. The woman's eyes softened. Emily pointed at herself, then at the woman, and tried to ask with gestures if she wanted food. The woman chuckled softly, shaking her head, and spoke again, a string of gentle Japanese words, melodic but incomprehensible. Emily smiled helplessly. Suddenly, something caught her eye, the jade ring on the woman's hand. She recognized it. Her grandmother used to tell her stories of an old Japanese jeweler who lived in the countryside decades ago, who crafted rings with a secret engraving inside, meant for those he loved. Emily leaned closer. Her grandmother's ring looked almost the same. Could it be, she thought, a strange chill running down her spine. Determined, Emily ran to the back room and pulled out her phone. She searched quickly for basic Japanese phrases, hoping to at least say something that could show respect. Sumimasen, she practiced quietly. Arigato. When she returned, the old woman was still sitting there, now with her hands folded in her lap, tears glimmering in her eyes. Emily took a deep breath, bowed again, and softly said, "Konnichiwa." The reaction was immediate. The woman's eyes widened in shock, then in relief. Her trembling hand reached out, and she said something through her tears, slowly, softly, as if afraid it wasn't real. Emily didn't understand, but she smiled, nodding, repeating another phrase she had learned, "Daijoubu desu ka?" Are you okay? The woman covered her mouth, crying silently. The restaurant fell into stunned silence. Every guest turned to watch. No one spoke, only the soft sound of the woman's sobs filled the air. She reached into her small purse and pulled out an old photograph, faded and yellowed at the edges. In it was a young woman, dressed as a waitress, standing beside a man with kind eyes and a jade ring that looked identical to hers. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The woman pointed at the picture, then at Emily, her lips trembling as she whispered something again. Emily didn't understand the words, but she felt the meaning deep within her chest. It was as if the universe had connected two distant lives through a moment of kindness and courage. The manager approached, still trying to understand what was happening, but Emily held up her hand, just for a moment, and turned back to the woman. She placed her hand gently over the woman's and said the only Japanese word she knew with full sincerity, "Tomodachi." Friend. The woman broke down completely. She held Emily's hand tight, whispering through tears. The other guests, who earlier had judged or laughed, now sat quietly, some visibly moved. The manager stood frozen, ashamed of his earlier behavior. Emily helped the woman with her meal, guiding her patiently through each item, making sure she felt cared for. The night, which began with discomfort and distance, slowly transformed into something magical, a silent connection of two souls who didn't need language to understand each other. Later, when the woman finished eating, she gestured for the bill. Emily shook her head, saying softly, "It's taken care of." The woman smiled, eyes glistening again. She reached for Emily's hand, slipped off her jade ring, and placed it gently into Emily's palm. Emily tried to refuse, but the woman closed her fingers around it, whispering one last phrase in Japanese, words Emily couldn't understand at the time, but would later learn meant, "You reminded me that kindness still exists." The next morning, when Emily returned to the restaurant, the woman was gone. No reservation, no trace. The staff said she had quietly left a letter at the front desk addressed to the waitress who spoke with her heart. In the letter, written in beautiful calligraphy, the woman revealed that she was indeed a millionaire, a businesswoman who had once lived in Japan and lost her family years ago after moving abroad. Her husband had died young, and her daughter, her only child, had gone missing after being adopted overseas during a difficult time. She had come to that restaurant not because of its luxury, but because it used to be the site of her old jewelry shop, the very place she had built her dreams. She had wanted to dine there one last time, to feel a connection with her past. Her letter ended with a note that made Emily's heart stop. "The way you looked at me, the way you said those few words in my language, reminded me of my daughter." Her eyes, her kindness, everything felt the same. "If you ever find a jade ring with my name engraved inside, you will know who you truly are." Emily ran her fingers over the ring, turned it gently, and there, faintly etched inside, was a name. Her grandmother's name. Her heart trembled. Tears filled her eyes. She realized, in that instant, that fate had brought them together, not as strangers, but as family rediscovering each other in the most unexpected way. That night, Emily looked up at the stars through her small apartment window, holding the ring close. The world suddenly felt bigger, and yet, more connected than ever. Sometimes, she thought, love doesn't need translation. Sometimes, kindness speaks the language of the heart. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, where every story reminds us that even the smallest act of compassion can change someone's entire world. Dizzy.